Is the is this new experimental center you set up, you're working on outside of Boulder, is it called One Spirit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, that's the website. And the work is extremely experimental.
Well, you're the right guy for that.
Yeah, well, I certainly have enough of that, iconoclasm inside to want to enjoy that. I was completely shocked that they approved it.
Right. Now I'm
You
hearing
know?
you, but I'm not hearing anything on those speakers over there. Is it coming through the speakers, guys? We actually have people here in
Uh-huh.
the shrine today that are going to be listening to you on these speakers. Can you guys hear it on speakers?
Can you say something else, Swami?
Yes. I'm never short of a word.
No, it's okay.
Spoken 7 years ago, our forefathers.
Yeah, no, but now
Yes,
back.
indeed.
Now
We've also got a group that meets here on Sunday mornings. So I'll finish here and then go into the other room. And
Is hearing okay now? Okay.
all right, is it working?
Okay, we got about 7 minutes, but I think we're ready to rock.
All right.
So you're hearing us okay on the speakers now, right?
Yes, because of
Swami, you can hear okay?
Can you hear on the speakers what we're saying?
Yeah, a little bit.
you have to speak on near the mic actually, right? So,
No, let's put for Swami. That's
Swami, for Swami.
I think only when the Swami speaks, I think there's a little bit of like an echo.
right. I know.
Okay, could you speak to us, Swami? And
We're having
just
trouble.
Sure. What could that echo be? Oh, the wonders of Zoom, coming up with all kinds of things. Have you guys done live singing on Zoom yet? If you haven't, don't.
Right.
Because there's a delay between when you speak and when you actually hear something. I've
Oh,
noticed.
You can't all sing at the same time.
Right.
That's the
Well,
problem.
Yeah.
there's even a
There's
bigger
those
problem is
ladies
that the mics cut out anything that's not in the human voice range. And so I'll sit there and play the piano. You'll get no piano music. If I sing, you'll get my voice, but you won't get any accompaniment. And it's the same if we've got a guitar, and it's just we've tried all of the settings.
Okay. Oh, so that's the camera for the audience.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was thinking we can switch between that and that camera.
Okay, got it. So it'll be me talking, and then you'll switch to Swami Chidbrahmananda during the lecture, and then the audience during Q&A, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll work.
But audience will probably have to come here for a question near the mic.
Yeah, we need to fix that. It's so awkward.
That's awkward.
You don't want to use the little one.
Now, notice that the focus on the audience is kind of like giving a lot of snow and
Yeah.
a lot of craziness there.
Yeah, we still need to. Daryl gave us a lesson, and we have video. I think we all need to look at the videos and really learn it.
Okay.
And he said he wants everything. We should get everything set up by 10:30. So
I agree.
Yeah. So once we know how to do it.
Did you take that camera out? It's out of the list. Yeah.
Does it make a difference if we increase the sound here? Swami, another testing for us, please.
Oh, testing. Here we are, making up things to say. Hopefully not the usual method. Did I hear an Aussie accent in Atlanta? It sure sounded like
not Aussie.
a Kiwi. What was who?
No, London.
Oh, London. Terribly sorry.
A long time ago.
Yes, it was only in one word that you spoke there that I caught it. But I also heard someone say, as soon as we learn how to do this, let me warn you, that day never arrives. We've been doing Zoom for our Sunday morning here for the last year and a half, and every single Sunday it's something. Every single Sunday.
Technology is a mixed blessing. I'm curious, I'm wondering now, it's really made our world a better place, but that's a question for another time, not for today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Prabhupada said, the internet's not going to, technology doesn't make the world anything. What we do with our technology will make the world what it is. Technology is just another tool in a long string of tools. I used to have this conversation a lot with Swami Prabhupada. He mentioned, he said, first of all, the important thing is to make sure that the technology is for you and that you don't become for the technology. That was his first teaching. And then the second thing was that it's neutral. Technology really doesn't do anything that we haven't done already for eons. It's just the same old thing in a different way. So now we've got a phone with video. Now we can write our papers online. We can read our books, watch our movies, but we're still doing stuff that we've always done.
Right, right.
Computers have not changed the world at all. They've made it a different experience in the sense that they're faster and information is more readily available. But has it made us any wiser? Certainly questionable. As long as we remain profit motive, we're going to be enslaved by it.
Julian, I'm in the wrong position to change the pinning. I don't know because
Say that again?
I'm in the wrong position to change the pinning, the camera.
Do you like to sit here?
Would be
I'm about to
No,
sit.
so do you want to sit here?
I should sit here.
sit here. Okay, okay. So, maybe I should. Yeah, this would be better actually.
Do you want to demand resistance?
Bhagavan Das.
Hey, Swami Pranam. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Excellent. Thank you.
Good.
Should we start? Ramadas, you ready?
I'm
Sure, it's maybe new so we can make sure. Well, then we can go to the first one.
Uma, is that Uma Majumdar? Is that two names or one name?
Yes, Uma. Separate Uma, last name Majmudar.
Ah, that's very endearing. I grew up in Germany, and our landlord of the house that we lived in, her family, they lived on a big farm. And we lived on a house that was built in the cow pasture. And I used to call her Oma. Oma.
Uma, U-M-A.
Uh-huh.
So pronounced Uma.
Uma.
Yeah, not Uma, not Uma.
it doesn't work.
Short U, Uma.
Short U.
Okay, that's true.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
this
good.
is an iPad.
It's supposed to be, so it's sort of pin you now, I think.
And like they,
Pin him now. So yeah.
Uma is Shiva's wife, Parvati.
Ah, what a calling.
Lord
Okay, you
Shiva's
have 11 o'clock, so I believe it's time that we should get started.
wife.
A quick introduction. Swami Chidbrahmananda, who will be speaking today, joined the order in 1999 and he took sannyasin in 2012. I met and got to know the Swami while I was working in Washington, D.C., and I would go to the Vedanta Center of Greater Washington, D.C. after work, where Swami Atmajnananda was the head Swami, and Swami Chidbrahmananda he ran the free clinic there, which to me was an impressive thing. But beyond that, the customers were overwhelmingly Hispanic. So Swami Chidbrahmananda had to learn Spanish to run a free clinic.
And to try and learn Spanish.
Swami Chidbrahmananda is currently just outside of Boulder, Colorado, where he's setting up a new type of Vedanta center called One Spirit. And with that, I hand it over to you, Swami Chidbrahmananda.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This actually is the fulfillment of an invitation that probably happened 15 years ago. Shankar called me and asked me if I would speak, and I agreed. And then that was that. I'm not sure if someone better came along or what, but here it is, our final fulfillment of that invitation a while back. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you and sharing some of these ideas. I'm in a very different place than I ever imagined myself to be, and certainly in a place that I did not expect to be able to get to, in the sense that I've been given permission by the order to run a 2-year experiment, and the 2 years is up in December. We'll see what happens at that point. But the experiment is to create a Vedanta center that does not manifest or present as any particular religion. There's several things that I've read in the literature that stuck in my mind, and I've been rolling them around in my head for probably close to 20 years, trying to figure out what could this mean and what does this look like. In the one sense, Ramakrishna said that that he had no intention of starting a new sect, and he didn't want a group of Ramakrishnians running around. That was not his point. It also is said of him that people from many different traditions came to him for teaching, and that every one of them thought that he belonged to their own tradition. And that in particular caught my attention. I thought, my goodness, it's one thing for you to present so universally that people come to you for teaching. It's another thing when you're able to teach them to the point, through their own traditions and their own mythologies, to the point that they believe you belong to their own tradition. I thought, what an amazing feat. And that this investigation that that I've been on started out with that thought there. I began wondering, can the Vedanta be taught through the Christian scriptures? And I took a year and I moved up to a Christian monastery up in West Park, New York. It was a Benedictine monastery. They welcomed me in. It was amazing. They welcomed me in as a monk and let me live in the cloister with them for 9 months. And I studied with a couple of their elder monks there, Brother Richard in particular, who had a doctorate from Oxford, very proper scholar. And so I got to sit with him every afternoon for about an hour, and I would go over these Vedantic ideals with him and dig through the scriptures and ask him, is this a possibility for interpreting the scripture this way, or for assigning this meaning? Because I didn't want to do anything that would be blasphemous, anything that would be outrightly wrong. And so that was where Vedic Christianity was born. And Vedic Christianity, which I still do a class on Thursday nights online, is just the idea of reading Christian mystics and scripture as if it was in, and I believe it is in, the context of the Sanatana Dharma, right? And so here in Boulder, what we're trying to do is we just have a small group meeting, and our meeting is mostly conversational. Everybody gets to share something they've learned in their practice during the week from their own tradition, their own scriptures. That way, I don't speak first, because that sets a tone and sets a tradition. So I didn't want to do that. So we do it through conversation. The room, everybody shares what they're learning, what they're studying, what they're reading. And then I'll kind of key off of that conversation and share for 15 or 20 minutes on a topic that comes to mind on what we were talking about. And we only have 4 celebrations, one in each of the seasons. And the season really kind of celebrates God under the guise of that season, the creator, the sustainer, the destroyer, and those aspects. And so we try and keep it neutral, but very spiritual. And then all of our classes always are sourced in the Vedanta, and we're not trying to hide that at all. We're just trying to create an environment that is comfortable for people from any tradition to come in and feel a part of, and for them to feel like they can be taught within their own tradition and go forward within their own tradition. And we get that from Swamiji's first lecture at the Parliament of Religions, where he said, I didn't come that a Hindu would become a Christian or a Christian a Hindu, or any other mixture. He said, God forbid, I come that a Christian is a better Christian, a Hindu is a better Hindu, and a Muslim a better Muslim. And so I thought, well, let's start a Vedanta society that does that. That we're not trying to get a particular message out. We're simply trying to encourage people in their tradition to move closer to the divine in the way that is natural and normal for them. And so the experiment's going on for 2 years. We've got a very small group. There's about, I guess, at the most of us, 10 or 12, and at the minimum, 3 or 4 on a Sunday. And we've been doing quarterly retreats. And another aspect of it that has opened up is we do 6 online classes a week. And those classes are ever more well attended. And so we've started keeping track of where the students are geographically, and then traveling to those places to do weekend retreats. So this year we've been doing almost a retreat every month, just traveling to different places. Just last week, I spent 9 days in New Mexico, going to Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and Cloudcroft, doing retreats in each of those places. Very exciting. We're meeting a whole different group of people. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with all this, because, I'm going to be running around like a lost cat before too long, with these people popping up everywhere. But we're having fun, and we're living life on a point and not on a line, which means that I'm not doing any planning. I'm not doing any forecasting. I'm not making any vision of what's going to happen or how this is going to work. I'm simply, when I went to the mother about doing this experiment, when I wrote the proposition under Sarvadevananda's encouragement to Bellarmine, I went to the shrine and I really laid it out to the mother, and I was like, this terrifies me to move outside of the monastery and to be alone for 2 years and to be doing a work for you. And I was told very distinctly, in the way that Mother talks to us, however we want to feel or think about that, she said, you only have one responsibility, Chidbrahm, and that is to stay in the shrine of the heart. You stay here. I'll do anything that's going to be done or not going to be done. And so I've really taken that to heart and have desperately tried to live on a point, so that not to look into the future, not to look to the past, but simply be present and to honor what's given to me in the moment, perform it, and move on. And the most wonderful thing about that, and I always feel funny about sharing this, let me say this is not a fundraiser. This is no way a request for funding. This is a sharing of something that's been spectacular to me. That I moved out of my monastery 2 years ago. I arrived here in Colorado with $79 in my pocket after making arrangements for the room, because I'm renting a room in a house here. And after paying for the van that brought my few things from the Hollywood Monastery here, I had $79. And I sat down in front of the shrine that night and I was like, okay, Ma, here we are. The adventure begins. And it begins with $79. I said, this month's rent is paid. That's no problem. I'm not going to be homeless for another month. And $79 will probably buy me some food for a week or two. We'll see. Anyway, we need money. And so I just left it at that. And do you know, we've been here almost 2 years. I have never asked for money. I have never put out a notice for money, and everything has been taken care of in excess, way beyond that. We actually have a building fund started already. No plans for a building, but we've got a building fund. So, we'll see what Mother's up to. I just assume she's collecting that money for something. So we're waiting and seeing. All right. So I wanted to talk about this idea that is really inspiring. It just bubbles out of me, really. I'm having so much fun with this notion of thinking. And I want to share some of the scriptures that excite me the most about this. The master is talking to Bhagavan Das, so I should probably have Bhagavan here to talk about it. The master is talking to Bhagavan Das, and he says, the eternal religion, the religion of the rishis, has been in existence from time out of mind and will exist eternally. There exist in this Sanatana Dharma all forms of worship. Worship of God with form and worship of the impersonal deity as well. It contains all paths, the path of knowledge, the path of devotion, and so on. Now, reading this scripture blew my mind, because the way that I saw it was that there is one religion in the world, and that actually to even have a word for religion is redundant, because life itself is the religion. And awareness is the tool that we use to read that scripture, to read that life. And the fact that here Thakur is saying that in this Sanatana Dharma, and I'm kind of chiseling away the traditional meaning of Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism being equivalent, I want to see Sanatana Dharma as a meta religion, that you can instantiate it as Buddhism, you can instantiate it as Hinduism, you can instantiate it as Christianity, you can instantiate it as Islam, right? And the Sanatana Dharma is the entire gem. It's the whole jewel, right? And all of the world's traditions throughout the ages have been facets of that gem. So through any of the world's religions, and we see Thakur saying this and living this and practicing this again and again, that the full gem can be enjoyed through any of its facets. But no one facet can say, I am the gem, because the gem will always be bigger than a tradition or a philosophy or even an ideal, because the gem itself is the sum total of an infinity, really. So this Sanatana Dharma exists with all forms of worship in it. And so I wanted to think about our relationship with religion is very different, very different. I feel like, and let me posit this idea, and I would love conversation if there's not an agreement on this, that we've made a huge mistake of ego. You see, one of the biggest functions of ego is to find distinction and categorize, right? Find distinction and categorize. And so ego is always setting up boundaries and relationships. The ego is born of the mind and memory, born of the mind and experience. And so it has a couple of functions. One is to give us a sense of being in this world of the unknown, right? It's a set of assumed ideas or assumed truths that allow us to function within a world that we know nothing of, that we don't know anything about it. So ego serves as that buffer. Ego serves as the narrator, giving you the thing that stitches your various experiences together into a singularity, and narrative divides, categorizes. So what we've done with religion is that here, throughout the ages, the Divine Mother has been allowing these incarnations of the purest vision of God, holes through which God can be seen in his purest form, appearing to us as Rama and Krishna and Buddha and Chaitanya and Jesus, and so on. And we, in our egoistic approach to our realization, to our being, have taken each one of those visitations and created a puddle around it. A little puddle, like a new religion. Oh, Buddha, that's Buddhism, Oh, Jesus, that's Christianity, and so on. We've taken these individuals and we created a little puddle of teaching and a little puddle of a religion around them. That was supposed to just be two fingers. Of a religion around these individuals, and we've lost sight of what's really happening. That God includes all of these, and his idea was not to have disparate puddles of insight splashing about and fighting with each other, but God's ideal is a river of an ever-broadening and deepening knowledge of the self. And that all of these religions have at their core the solution to a single problem. And that single problem is, in fact, egoism. That idea that we are separate and apart from the whole. That is what causes all of our trouble. If we could get rid of those notions of me and mine, the mind would calm, and we would see the divine reflection in its singularity and come to our knowledge, fulfill our purpose in life. And so every religion in the world has as its fundamental task this reduction of egoism, this breaking it down, and helping you to learn and understand that you are not separate and apart from the whole. In the gospel, Ramakrishna goes on, it says, to him, this is, I believe, our master and his message from that section. To him, all that is true is Veda. By the Vedas, he says, and this is Vivekananda, by the Vedas, he says, no books are meant. They mean the...
Oh, okay.
What's that?
It'll get feedback.
We're just adjusting the volume here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, 27. We're getting a lot of ringing in the background. I guess
Okay.
it's that. Okay.
Okay, yeah, we can keep going.
All right. So gospel and our master, he says, to him, all that is true is Veda. And by the Vedas, he says, no books are meant. They mean the accumulated treasury of spiritual laws discovered by different persons in different times. Incidentally, he discloses his conception of the Sanatana Dharma from the high spiritual flights of the Vedanta philosophy, of which the latest discoveries of science seem like echoes, to the lowest ideas of idolatry with its multifarious mythology, the agnosticism of the Buddhists and the atheism of the Jains. Each and all have a place in the Hindu's religion, the Sanatana Dharma. And of this Indian mother church, according to him, the distinctive doctrine is that of the Ishta Devata, the right of each soul to choose its own path and to seek God in its own way. No army, then, carries the banner of so wide an empire as that of Hinduism, thus defined. For as her spiritual goal is the finding of God, even so is her spiritual rule that perfect freedom of every soul to be itself. So again, this widening out, even of the idea of scripture. You know, there's a this beautiful saying down here. Is the Vedanta the future religion? I need this paragraph here to make my point in proper fullness. But in Vivekananda's writing, is Vedanta the future religion? He says, what does the Vedanta teach us? In the first place, it teaches you that you need not even go out of yourself to know the truth. All the past and all the future are here in the present. No man ever saw the past. Did any one of you see the past? When you think you are knowing the past, you only imagine the past in the present moment. To see the future, you would have to bring it down to the present, which is the only reality. The rest is imagination. This present is all that is. There is only the one. All is here right now. One moment in infinite time is quite as complete and all-inclusive as every other moment. All that is and was and will be is here in the present. Let anybody try to imagine anything outside of it. He will not succeed. What religion can paint a heaven which is not like this earth? And it is all art. Only this art is being made known to us gradually. We, with 5 senses, look upon this world and find it gross, having color, form, sound, and the like. Suppose I develop an electric sense. All will change. Everything is here and now, and they really are nothing but the appearances of the divine presence. And so this river that has expanded and is including all of the scriptures and all of the teachings of the world's traditions can come together and inform each other, give each other depth, give each other a broader understanding, a wider meaning of this beloved that we are slowly falling in love with ad infinitum, actually, and that there is no sense of difference or other. There is simply all of us moving forward in this river of spirit called life toward the goal divine, the supreme goal, to know our nature, to know each other, to know this world as it is. and that all of the scriptures, they are not writings. By Vedas, no books are meant, right? The books are present in this moment. You know, the Bible came out of this moment. It was a distillation of this moment into scripture. You know, the Vedas are the same. They're a distillation of this moment, right? What is the nature of this moment? You know, when Moses was told by God, go to the Pharaoh and have him release these 3 million slaves of his, and Moses was like, I understand what you're saying. I want to remind you that I'm nobody. You know, to go to the Pharaoh and tell him to release 3 million slaves for nothing in exchange. Who exactly should I tell has sent me to him to ask him to do this, right? And God says, tell him that the I am has sent you, right? And this is mirrored in the New Testament when Jesus is cornered by the Pharisees, by the religious elite, and forced into a corner. Who are you? Tell us who you are, that you give these teachings and have the audacity to challenge our traditions. And Jesus says, ego eimi, which was an exact quote of God. I am that I am. That's who I am. And it says that they picked up stones to stone him to death, and he disappeared into the crowd. They couldn't find him. And so this I am, you see, this I am is the moment. I am is present. It's isness, it's being. And this moment contains all of the scriptures of the world in it, in their non-distillate form, unwritten. But they can all be accessed by living this life with an attention from the perspective of knowing the truth. And the truth is that the nature of all things is Satchitananda, that the nature of all things is wisdom, and infinite, spontaneous wisdom, a wisdom that's not in the mind, a wisdom that's not born of relational thinking, but a religion that's born of gnosis, a knowing of information that comes from inside out, not in through the senses, not in through the brain and mind, but from the inside out. This wisdom of knowing, this bliss, this love, this attracting force that Vivekananda says that the whole everything in the universe, this is the one motivating force in the universe is love. It's for love that the electrons circle the center of the nucleus. You know, it's for love that the planets circle the sun and that the moon circle the planets. And he just builds this wonderful idea of this love being this whole universe. And then Eckhart Tolle comes along and says that light and love are the same thing. Not that they're similarities, not that they're metaphors. He says the same thing. And I thought about this. I thought, how can that be? I look outside, I see the sun. And then all that realization, you know, I love it when I get to talk to people for the first time, because I get to talk about all my favorite subjects that anybody who knows me is completely bored with ad infinitum. But this wonderful that you are seeing right now, this light that you're imagining, and I emphasize that, this light that you're imagining seeing right now is the light of consciousness. It's the light of God. It's the light of love. It is love. And how do we separate that from the stars? We don't know of the existence of the stars. We know nothing about them. This light right now that's hitting your eyes, and now this is when all of the people who've heard me say anything in the past are groaning. Oh no, here he goes. The light that's hitting your eyes does not get into your brain. Your brain has never seen the light of day. And if you stay healthy, it never will. You know, it's in the dark. It's in a dark box. So this light hits the back of your eyes. It hits those cones. Those cones create some electro-bio signal that they send along a wire to the brain. And the brain takes that information and it creates a symbol for light. So what you're seeing that lights your room right now is actually the same light that lights your dreams at night. All right, when you're wandering the dream world within your own mind, that light of that dream is the light of love, the light of consciousness, the light of awareness. And so we are always swimming in this moment, swimming in the divine love, caressed, warmth, embraced by this divine presence, by this divine light. And in the silence of this moment, Ramakrishna says, in the silence of pure mind, that which arises is the voice of the divine. All right. So in this moment, if you can be in a state of just awareness, turning every function of yourself into an ear, no instruments of action, no organs of action, nothing. The only action you do is to turn everything, all of your mind, all of your body, all of your senses into a great big satellite dish aimed at the beloved, aimed at the divine. So to navigate this moment, to read the scriptures that the sages have been able to crystallize from this moment, for you to access them and read them, books are not the necessary thing. The necessary thing is that inner awareness, that awareness of the moment, the awareness of the nature of the moment, the awareness of your own nature in the midst of all of that, and a surrender of anything that is not your nature. Make sure that in this moment you do only what is motivated and inspired by love. In this moment, make sure that you do only that which is motivated and inspired by wisdom, and do it in the present. Don't make plans in an imaginary future. Don't drag your imaginary past. Let them fall away. Those are your karmas, right? Those are your karmas. Your past is just your collection of attachments. Those things that were flowing by in the moment that would have been happy just to flow by in the moment. You grabbed it. No, I like pizza. I'll store that memory back here. And so your past has become your collection of your attachments. And because you've held on to these attachments, you can no longer see the moment as it is, because these attachments give you lenses. So your lenses look on a perfect moment and see imperfection. Right? The moment doesn't have all of your attachments in it. And so it creates a sense of lack, a sense of desire. And that desire that it creates, that's your future. Because you have to come up with a way of bringing your desires, manifesting your attachments in the moment. So you create a future so that you have a way of planning, a way of getting what you desire. So your past is your attachments, your future, your desires. And most of us are just sitting there bouncing back and forth between two unreal things, our attachments and our desires, and jumping over the one only real thing, which is this moment, this beautiful moment, being wasted and forgotten and left on auto drive, left on assumptions, when in this moment is where everything is. This moment is your enlightenment. This moment contains your enlightenment in full. There's nothing to be accomplished. There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to do. You are that. And it is as true in this moment as it will be in any moment. And so when you sit in your practice, according to the teachings in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he says that the Buddhist does not sit to realize God. The Buddhist sits to realize that he is already realized, that the work is already done within you. And you say, oh, but how is that possible? How come I can't see it? It's because you have not placed your identity in that space, right? Within us is Shiva and Shakti. Shiva, the unchanging absolute, right? That divine principle of Satchitananda, the noun of Satchitananda, is placed within us. And we are the verb of that. We are the action. We are word in the Christian speak, right? We are word. We are the manifestation of the ideal. That's what we are. And so we sit and grow and live and understand and thrive in this knowledge of the moment, this knowledge of being. It says the goal of religion, or the essence of religion, is to realize this divinity that is realization of the God in the self, and to manifest it. Vivekananda believes that religion is not the outcome of the weakness of human nature. It is never because we fear. Religion is law, which is upholding, expanding aspect of human potential divinity. Every individual has to realize its divinity. He says that individual beings are like the sparks of Brahman, and therefore divinity is potentially inherent in it. This divinity is termed as God. And according to Vivekananda, it is the realization and manifestation of such divinity in the soul which forms the essence of religion. So he says religion is the manifestation of a divinity already in man, right? So this divinity is already here. All of our practice is simply to be what we already are. And the reason it's difficult is because we have been listening to the wrong source of who we are, right? And that's why I was just beginning to describe. You've got Shiva and Shakti there within you. You've got this divine, absolute unchanging, and that resides in the shrine of the heart, right? If you can identify with the silence of the heart, pull yourself away from body, pull yourself away from mind, sit in the silence of the heart, and in that silence, the voice of the divine is what arises, is what becomes known to you. And from that place, you observe the mind. The mind is Shakti. The mind, the disturbed mind, is Shakti. It's the divine mother, right? So you have pure awareness, which is Brahman, that pure awareness which has no attributes. It is ever present outside of time. And then you have that awareness with objects in it. That's consciousness. That's the divine mother. And this awareness with objects in it is the mind. And we have placed our identity in mind, which means we describe ourselves from the outside in. Right? That's Sri Nisargadatta says that's the one primary difference between an enlightened soul and a soul still in bondage, is that the enlightened soul describes itself from the inside out, and the unenlightened soul describes itself from the outside in. Right? And the first time I read that, I was dismayed to see that it was true. I thought about, how do I describe myself? I do start on the outside, start with my age, my gender, my job, and slowly work in. And so then I went about the exercise. Well, how do I describe myself from the inside out? And that's when I realized that I had not dived deep yet, what Talker talked about, because I had no idea how to describe myself from the inside out, because you immediately encounter your infinites. You come to realize that you are not geolocated. You come to realize that you don't have a boundary, and you do it through observation, through discernment. This isn't an imagination. This is an understanding when you observe your inner world. So to find that inner world, the first thing you have to go do is go inside and find out, what are the noisemakers in here? What prevents my inner world from being beautiful, from being peaceful, right? And this ties in very nicely with this divine moment, this divine presence, that God is moment. God is this moment with you. And so your relationship with God is not with some fairy godmother out there. Your relationship with God is this moment. And if you find this moment unsettling, your relationship with God needs work. If you find this moment to be empty, or to be needy, or to be alone, then you haven't found your beloved. Your beloved is with you in this moment. The light around you bears witness to it. Your existence bears witness to it. Your ability to grow and to change and to learn bears witness to it. Why? Because they belong to the beloved alone, and they are on loan to you. You are reflecting them. So your wisdom, your knowledge, your learning, your growing, your transcendence, all of these things are your love letter from God. They are your love letter from the Divine Mother, from the beloved, saying, I am with you, and I'm lifting you up, and I'm teaching you, and I'm letting you use my intelligence for that. My intelligence. And I'm showing you love. Look at all the things that you know that you never knew you loved. Love is one of those things we didn't have to be taught what it is. We see what it is. We know it when we see it. Beauty. We didn't have to be taught what beauty is. We know it when we see it, right? These are our divine nature. These are what we are. This is what we find in the moment. And in that silence, we get that comfort that is beyond egoism, right? And as we surrender, we realize that we're not surrendering our will to a foreign will. We're educating our will into our true will, the will of the divine, right? The will that's motivated only by our nature, by pure love, by pure wisdom, and manifested in this wonderful, wonderful gift of this existence. Interestingly enough, in the Great Master, this is written: the difference between the mood of Radha and that of her friends is one of degree and not of kind. Like Radha, her friends also worshipped Krishna, the embodiment of existence, knowledge, bliss, as their husband, and tried to bring about the union between Radha and Krishna in order to make the latter happy, inasmuch as he, they say, felt most happy when united with her. Again, we see that although Rupa, Sanatana, Jiva, and other early Vaishnava teachers spent their lives at Vrindavan in the service of different images of Krishna, they did not try to install an image of Radha by the side of Krishna. This is a fascinating thing. So they didn't install an image of Radha. It is inferred from this fact that they did not do so only because they considered themselves to be in the position of Radha, right? So this is a very important thing, you see, the self, this active self, right, that is identity in the mind. When we place identity in mind, identifying with the senses, when we do that, we become a vibration, we become an activity. And that activity is the vibration of the noun of God, right? So this is another one of my favorite little thoughts in my mind, is that God does not exist. God is existence itself. God is not loving. God is love itself. God is not intelligent. God is intelligence itself. We are the verb. God is the noun. We have that divine image, right? That divine principle placed within us, Satchitananda. And it's us that makes it vibrate. It's us in our ignorance, a planned ignorance apparently, that makes it vibrate, makes manifestation, right? There's always a seed of impurity in manifestation. Otherwise, the sea is completely calm. There's no manifesting. There's no changing. It's perfect, right? In the absolute unmanifest, right? Which is necessary to hold up the tent of relativity. If we didn't have that mast or that center pole for the circus tent as the absolute unchanging, then this relative world would have nothing to spread it out. There would be nothing from which that first relationship is defined, right? The thing in a relational world is you have to have two objects. You have to have one to compare to another. Otherwise, there's no attributes. So attributes come only through comparison. And if there was only comparison in this universe, it would simply collapse in on itself. It would collapse into infinite smallness, or expand into infinite hugeness. Who knows? But there would be no there. And so we have this divine absolute that was the first measure from which everything else is measured. And we are its action. We are loving. We are intelligent. We exist. Right. And so you can always know of your intimacy with the beloved if you just meditate on that this existence is your love letter from God, that this intelligence of yours is a love letter from God, that your being is a love letter from God. And that through that, through absorption of that, through simply opening to that and surrendering anything that the mind comes up with in its gyrations, because you are not mind, you can sit in that space and move your identity out of the world of the constant, unrepeated change, and place your identity in the unchanging self, the absolute self, that you that has been watching mind, that you that has been watching body, because that's one of the first things you realize when you go in and dive deep. You realize that your mind has to report everything to you. If the mind doesn't tell you about itself, you don't know about it. If it doesn't express its mood, if it doesn't express its condition to you, you don't know. And it's the same with the body. The body has to report to you. You don't know that you're sick until the body puts that funny taste in the back of your mouth or gives you a little bit of a headache, whatever it is. And so by necessity, you can see, I'm the observer of body. I'm not the body. Otherwise, I would know how it is without being told, right? I'm an observer of mind. Otherwise, I would know its conditions without being told. But you also can know that you are not the body and the not mind because you are still you, even though this body has not one cell in common with your newborn body. You know, and as your body has changed through all these years, how has it known that it was you the whole time? You are that absolute unchanging principle. That's who you really are. You are the noun, right? And it's only when you got confused with body mind that you became active. You became defined by your senses. You see, I'll close by just reminding us of the very first story in the Christian Bible, because this story loops this situation out perfectly for us. You see, the Garden of Eden is not necessarily a story of the beginning of a creation that is on a linear path to an end, as it's often commonly told, but that the Garden of Eden story is looping, and it is happening actively in this moment. You are Adam and you are Eve, and we are in this story, and that story is happening at this moment. Because what does Eve do? You know, she goes and she looks at that tree, and the serpent is there, and the serpent represents ignorance, represents confusion. And so immediately he's trying to misquote God and get her confused. Did God say you weren't allowed to eat of any of the fruit in the garden? And she's, no, 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 not that. He said this. But before he can get that settled, he brings up another doubt. He says, oh, well, you know why he doesn't want you to eat any of this fruit? Because it's going to make you like him. You're going to be as powerful as he is. And then everything's going to be a problem. That's why he's got you controlled like this, right? And so it says there's a 3-step process that she goes to. One, she looks at the fruit and she sees that it's beautiful. That's the first thing. Now we can look at this world and see that it's beautiful because it's a manifestation of God. But we should always remember that. You don't look at the mountains and say, oh, look how beautiful the mountain is. You look at the mountain and you look through it and you say, oh, look how beautiful the mother is, right? You look through everything in creation because it is God that is behind it. Nothing exists in and of itself. So we look through everything, and this includes our worship. You know, many of us here in the West, we're taught the image worship. We're not really familiar with that. And one of the things that Vivekananda said that was so helpful to me, he says, when you worship the image, do not stop at the image. Don't worship that picture. Don't worship that stone. Don't worship that clay. Look through that clay to the divinity that is behind it. Look through that picture to the divinity that is behind it. He says, if you do that, that is moksha. If you worship through your entire experience of being here, don't look at anything as it appears to be. Look at everything as a quality, a manifestation of your beloved. And by doing that, everything becomes your teacher. The scriptures will distill from this moment into your wisdom, and you will see things correctly, and you won't form attachments to objects. You'll form your attachment to that one thing, which is you, that spirit, that divinity, that Satchitananda that is behind them. And so Eve is standing in the garden. She's looking at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is actually the knowledge of egoism, right? Egoism is what is different from God. Egoism is what's separate from God. And when something is separate from God, by necessity, evil and good come into being. Good being those things that are in flow or in harmony with the nature of the divine, in the nature of Satchitananda, and evil being those things that are unhelpful toward that seeing, toward that understanding. So she's sitting there looking at the fruit of egoism in this tree, and she sees that it's beautiful. If she had stopped there, wonderful. She sees the beauty of God, but she has a second thought. It looks like it will be good for food. I want it, right? I want to take. I want to possess, all right? And that possession then came to the third mistake. She thought that it would make her like God, right? She thought it would be her fulfillment. So you see, in this moment, you are standing and looking at that tree. That tree of egoism is this material world around you. And the first thing that will strike you is, oh, wow, it's beautiful. Oh, look at those cars. They're beautiful. Look at those mountains. They're beautiful. Look at those men and women. They're beautiful, right? If you just stop there and you look through those objects and you recognize the beauty of the divine, then that love for God grows, that embrace and the warmth of your reality grows, and all is fine. But if you let that mature into a need to have, I want that car. I want that person. I want that job. I want that money. Then you've given birth to egoism. You've given birth to separation from God, right? And that third thing, if you think that those things of this imagined outside world are going to fulfill you, if you think you can add them to yourself, then you've activated the curse of the Garden of Eden, right? The curse of the Garden of Eden was several. One, it makes you feel small. Why? Because you've defined yourself with the senses and the changing. There can be no security in a world that is a constant flow of unrepeating change. You simply cannot make a nest here, right? In the Bible, that's the story of the foolish man who builds his house on the sand. What is the sand? The sand is the changing world, the world of mind. And if you build your identity and your stability on the world of the changing, on these things out there that are all going away constantly, there is no security for you, right? If you think there's fulfillment there, there's no security for you. So the Garden of Eden gives those different curses. One, fear, right? As soon as they ate that forbidden fruit, God is walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and naturally they would have run up to be with him. But today they were afraid. So we become afraid of the beloved when we attach to the world of change, because he becomes unknown to us. He becomes other. She becomes other to us, and we get stuck. If we look at this world as being a fulfillment, as if we're going to get something from it, then God, the curse of the garden is that you will have to till and scratch at the dust of the earth all the days of your life to fulfill your needs, right? Because nothing remains. Every Mercedes you collect is going to rust and dent. Every house that you collect is going to decay. Every person that you marry and love is going to die. In this world, there's only one thing we can get. Another one of my favorite statements that I tell myself many times a day. The only thing you can have in this world is a bucket of potting soil. Pick anything. Come back in time. It will be a bucket of potting soil. Your Mercedes, your children, your houses, your wives, your friends, the night sky, that beautiful sunset. Everything ends in potting soil in this world. So you should learn that you came in naked for a reason, because you go out the same. If there was something to get in this world, you would be able to take it with you. But you cannot. It's the world of dreams. Like we've already mentioned, that light that you're seeing right now is not the light from outside. You have no access to that light from outside. It's your mind's symbol for light from outside. So we live in a dream world. This world is as the world you live in your waking state is exactly of the same nature as the world you see in your dreaming state. Because nothing, you have no way of verifying an outside. You know, the sound you think comes from your ear, that ear is much of a symbol for the source of sound created by mind as the sound is itself, right? All touching, all the same thing. It's all information that comes to the mind, and the mind has merely created symbols for this world. So we live in a mind. We don't live in a world. And we all live in a common mind. But we use our section of that mind that we've clipped off with egoism to create our own personal world that makes us feel safe, makes us feel valued. And the way that we do that is by taking our divine nature, which we intuitively know. We don't name it, but we take this intuitively known self and we try to recreate that infinity in the finite. And it can't be done. We're trying to create that unity through relationships, that power through money, that bliss through pleasure. We're trying to manifest our infinite self in the finite, and it simply can't be done. That's why we're born into a situation of renunciation, discernment, and surrender. So we let go of the stories. and we listen to one story, the story of love, as it is flowing through 7 billion creatures of the divine at this very moment, within a setting of being, which is the very body of the divine holding it up. And we enjoy the bliss of our beloved, expecting nothing, knowing everything, and being ecstatic in the sum total of that love and that wisdom and that being. And this is life, and this is religion, and this is our chance to be free. All that you will have on the day of your realization is in you right now. All the tools that you need for that realization are available to you right now. So what is it that holds us here? This is what we want. Dive deep, O mind. Understand your nature. What is the fear in you that won't let go? What is the belief that you've earned or gotten that you can't let go? Be free and surrender, because this moment is all about being the you that you've always been, watching the play of God for thousands of years. And we continue. All right. So I'll open it up if there's any questions or additions or thoughts, concerns, challenges. Excellent.
Well, I'll say one thing, Swami.
Good, it's the icebreaker.
I know you can always count on me. So
Yeah.
I saw you, floundering there. So not really.
Floundering.
But but I think it's quite significant that, one of the 2 books that Vivekananda carried with him was The Imitation of Christ, because to me, they're the exact same religion with a different skin on it.
Yes.
It's just, I think in the modern era in the West, it's just harder for people to see that. Because like when we're talking the imitation of Christ and the cloud of unknowing and all those type of things, we're talking like late 1300s and 1400s.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and the books about the pilgrim, the way of the pilgrim, that was early, or 13th, 14th century Eastern Orthodox Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christianity in that time was a lot more Vedantic than in the West in the present. And, and I think when you see it in that light, it's really, if you understand the stories are trying to explain, all the different gods and the stories, they're also metaphoric, and they're explaining, aspects of God, and it's all the same thing. It's just, I don't know why people can't see through the skin. It's like just a different religion. I mean, different skin.
Well, it's not a regional problem. You can't say it's a Western or an Eastern problem. It's a human problem. And the only problem we have as humans is our egoism, our sense of separateness from each other. It's from that wars are fought, that rapes are had, that anger is expressed, that jealousy is born. All of this notion of separateness, this me and mine, which expresses that's one elevator stop below lust and greed. You need the me and mine first, and from me and mine come lust and greed, and from lust and greed, Ramakrishna says all of this. All right, so egoism and the destruction of egoism, the surrender of that egoism, is our common solution, that every religion paints. And the means of that is love, because love dissolves difference. Love dissolves boundaries.
Well, that's the thing, the heart is always going to say yes. Like, to the homeless person, yes, take my coat. Yes, have this $20. The mind and the ego are going to be like,
Well, no, it'd be nice if it was that cut and dry, but sometimes the ego is also saying, oh, you're so good, give your coat away. Oh, you're so kind, you're such a good Vedantan, give him a glass of water, give him food. So we have to really see that giving the coat isn't motivated by a doing. It's inspired by a oneness. Sri Nisargadatta says that when a deluded soul sees someone suffering, they see suffering. Right? He says when an enlightened soul sees someone suffering, he suffers because he knows himself to be non-different from that suffering. And so because he suffers and knows his nature to be that which alleviates suffering, so he alleviates suffering. It's not service from one superior person who has, supporting somebody who doesn't have. When we work that way, always resentment is born, always tension is born. This guy gets tired of you having to do everything for him, and being in the lesser position all the time, and you start expecting his appreciation and that he treats you with respect and in a certain way.
But actually where I was going with this is more of the nature of the mind versus the heart. And when you said that, like the apple, and the ego is what keeps us separate from God, and it's like, I just know in my personal path that at first, I thought I was trying to purify my mind of thoughts and worldly thoughts. And then I realized you're actually trying to purify the mind of the ego. And it's just, I didn't really realize how much of the mind was the ego.
Yeah, well, it's the problem is you're not doing anything. Anytime that we approach anything, whether it's our spiritual life or our daily life, as the doer, the only doer is egoism. Right. And so that's why I say that live your life on a point. That's been my big practice in these last year and a half, is learning what that means. It's literally sitting here and waiting, not in a nothingness, but in a very great alertness, listening to every sense and watching every occurrence to look for mother, the will of the divine, what to do in the moment and how to do it. There is no doership on our part. Since we can't get rid of that idea, what do? We surrender. Because we don't know what it is to. Yes, Uma. Oops, you need to unmute. I can't hear you.
Now.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. First, I'm so deeply touched and I'm enthused in my little way that I pursue meditation sometimes. And when I meditate, this is a question of how do I know that it is not my ego who is sitting there and pursuing? And when I feel good after meditation, how do I know that it is going to last?
This is a very, very tricky question, because that which is concerned about such a thing is the ego itself. So your ego will make you question your value, will make you question your practice, because the ego is the doer. The ego wants to be in charge. And so the ego is trying to convince you realization is very difficult, renunciation almost impossible. Discernment is very tricky. So the mind, the ego is always trying to make those things difficult, because then it will stand up and put on its shining armor and say, I'm going to surrender. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to purify my mind. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I. And we're stuck in the same place. We're still doing it from egoism. And so when we sit to practice, we don't sit to do anything. We sit to be in the presence of God, to be in the presence of the divine. In however you want to approach that. If you're a Gyani, you'll have different words, but the process is the same. That we sit there to enjoy God. That when you the way I like to talk about it is, of course, in India, I never saw anybody laying in the sun. But when I grew up, as a teenager, I would lay out in the chaise lounge in the backyard, and it was terrible for me to do, because I'm whiter than a sheet of paper. And But yeah, I would sit out there to get a suntan. Well, to get a suntan, I don't have to go in and add melatonin. Okay, zone 2 on the left elbow, more melatonin over there. Oh my gosh, there's some burning on the third knuckle, more melatonin there. I'm not the doer in that situation. To get a tan, I surrender to the presence of the sun, and the sun gives me a tan. My body reacts as a tan. In your spiritual practice, have the same attitude. You're not going in there to do anything because you're not the doer. Thakur says that so many times in the gospel. You're not the doer. So when you go in to meditate, don't go in to do. Go in to enjoy. Enjoy the presence of the divine, of your chosen ideal, Mother, Jesus, Buddha, Rama, or all of them in a dance. Who knows? Whatever your ideal is, go. You be in the presence of the mother. The mother says, it's my job as the mother to change the dirty diaper on the baby. It's not the baby's job to clean itself up and come to the mother, right? Yeah. So when you sit in your practice, just enjoy mother. She's doing everything. You have nothing to fail at. You have nothing to be successful at. You are the baby enjoying the presence of the mother, and that's your only responsibility. So surrender to the mother. Know that she's there because you couldn't exist if she wasn't there. So know she's present in a very intimate way. Yeah. Know that you can feel love and recognize love because she's present in you. You have wisdom, you have hope of transcendence because of her intelligence in you. You know, she has given these things to you and they are beautiful. And she's hidden wonderful gifts throughout your day today. She'll show you little vignettes of beauty. And if you have eyes to see them, you'll see them. And you'll receive them. Mother did this for me. Right. Mother gave me a card. Mother gave me a beautiful tree. Mother gave me a beautiful lake, a beautiful sunset. Everything in this universe, when observed from the point of the perspective that it is the divine manifestation, right. If you look at it that way, everything becomes your teacher. Everything is pointing at the face of the beloved. Everything will remind you of that truth.
Thank you. Yeah. And this is, I'm not going to read the whole poem, but this is what I got from dear John Slank, who passed away.
Oh, John Slank, yes.
And I love this poem that he wrote. And the first 2 lines exactly represent what you are saying. It says, dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. And I change the word God's mercy anyway. But dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depth, there you will find the gem of love. And this is very inspiring to me.
Yes, that's directly out of the gospel, actually.
Yeah, right.
Sri Ramakrishna, it's a beautiful poem. He sings that poem to Bhagavati, that woman. One of my favorite stories. Oh gosh, I have to discipline myself, otherwise I'll launch into another lecture. But that's my favorite story. Yes, that woman, she's so timid. When she comes, she sits in the back of the room and Thakur asks her, have you done this for the holy men? Oh, no, I can't say. Have you done this for the holy men? Oh, no, I haven't done that either. And she's very, very ashamed. And then she mentions, oh, but I have put in a bathing ghat. And there's a plaque there with my name on it. Right. And then she feels that encouragement and she comes forward and then she touches Thakur's feet and he jumps up like a scorpion has stung his foot. Right. I suffered for that story because I thought, oh my God, if that poor woman can't draw near to Thakur like that, then certainly I can't draw near to Thakur, right? But I understood the story because why did she approach Thakur? Because she thought she had done something that made her worthy to go and touch Thakur. She walks in and sits in the back of the room and Thakur comes to her. Thakur starts talking to her, approaches her, right? But then when she comes up with something that she thought was worthy, then she owns that And because of that, comes forward and touches Thakur. And I believe that he jumps in fear or jumps in pain like that to humble her, because that's the birth of ego. When you think that some accomplishment of your own makes you worthy of the light, no, absolutely not. You're under egoism at that point. And so he makes it clear to her, it's not what you're doing. It's not what you've done. And then he does the most beautiful thing. After he's jumped up and run over and poured a whole pot of Ganges water on his foot, what does he do? It's the only time that I'm aware of that he sings to an individual in the gospel. He comes and he sits next to Bhagavati and he sings her that poem. Mm-hmm. Dive deep, scattered deep within you lie the gems.
Yeah.
You know, go and gather them up. So he's saying it is in you. It is in you, but it's not in your doership. It lies in what you are. And you can know what you are only by the amount of grace and love that the divine is showing you. Your value is not in what you are. Your value is in that God loves you infinitely.
Sorry to interrupt. How do we know that when you say you or I, that it's not ego? That you means just an object and person, just a figure of speech, not you in the sense of aham.
Yes. No, unfortunately, we're all in Yama's waiting room here. Egoism is part of the game, and Thakur says that for us normal folks, it's almost impossible to get rid of egoism. So what we do is we just make that egoism as thin as possible, and that part that we can't get rid of, that's the part we use for our relationship with God, as a servant, as a lover, as a husband, as a child, as a parent. However we approach God, we use that, what's left of egoism, and we subject it to the ideal. And Mother takes care of the rest. That's not our worry. You know, like Thakur says, I've already done 15/16. You do 1/16, right? You just put yourself in the presence as often and as frequently and as lengthily as you can possibly remember to do. No limit to it. Place yourself in the presence. Be aware of that awareness, just like Brother Lawrence, the present practice of the presence. Just be in the presence of God. That will change you. That's where the work does. It's not because you've done anything. It's because you, placing yourself in the sun, are going to get a suntan. You become holy by sitting consciously in the presence of the divine and doing that for your whole day. Always, even in your dreams, if you can manage it. And there is freedom.
Sorry, Swami,
Yes.
we have some people physically in the room who would like to ask questions. So we're going to mute everybody on Zoom, or if you can all mute yourselves for now, please. And we're going to have some questions from the room. And
Very
again,
nice.
we're still struggling with our audio visual here, but hopefully you'll be able to hear the questions. Who would like to ask a question?
Okay.
Mommy.
Yes.
I'm Chetan.
Hello, Chetan.
The discussion is very good. The question is, does what you're talking about makes you tamasic? Like, you just give up and say, I don't have to do anything. Mother will take care. And so you just don't do any activity. That is the other side of what you are talking about, where one can basically give up and not do much at all.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, but it's not likely. It's there's that young brahmachari that sat down on a bench next to Mother and said, I'm going to sit here until I realize God. And Mother chuckles and she says, yes, you should try, but your karma is going to throw you off of that bench. So if you could possibly sit down and do nothing, that would actually be a boon. But the thing is that we're not pieces of wood. We don't realize nothingness, right? When we sit silent, we're talking about a silent ego. We're talking about a silent dictator within. We're shutting that down. If we were a piece of wood, what you would be saying is right. We'll do nothing. We would just be inert. But our nature is Satchitananda. And as soon as we silence the ego, Ramakrishna manifests, Jesus manifests, Buddha manifests. And in the moment, we are inspired by that nature to alleviate suffering, to serve, to see our beloved everywhere. And we just can't do enough. So the silencing and the surrendering, that's the ego that we're bringing down. We're taking it out of control through surrender. But once that surrender begins to develop, once you get even a split second of silence in there, God can't help but poking himself through those little cracks and crevices to make herself, known. And you become what you really are, which is the greatest of servants. So you look at the direct disciples, you look at Jesus, fully surrendered to God. But that doesn't mean he sat there and did nothing. It means then God could manifest through him. Like Thakur says, what is an incarnation? It's a hole through which God can be seen. It's an absence. It's not a presence, right? So we look through the avatar at the nature of the beloved beyond, and we see that. And that's what will happen to us as well. We'll become a whole, and in a sense, a hole is tamasic. But what comes through that hole is beauty.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We have one more question coming.
Sure.
Jai Ma Maharaj.
Good morning, Jaima.
I just want to know, so, to suppress that ego, is that the attitude of a karma yogi? Just do everything as an arpana buddhi to the Bhagavan?
Yes, of course. All the paths are about getting rid of the ego, and they try and do it in the way that's least painful to your disposition. But karma yoga, being present in the moment, is the dropping of your past and the dropping of your future. If you drop your past and your future, you've dropped your narrative. And what is your narrative? Narrative is your ego. And so certainly karma yoga, doing it in the moment, forgetting past, forgetting future, denying the idea of result, that I'm doing this for something else, all of that is exactly what we're talking about. It's that surrender of ego, being present in the moment, knowing the divinity of the moment, and everything that is done in that moment is sacred and offered to the beloved as an offering. Nothing is to take, nothing is to get. So yes, that's karma yoga's approach to getting rid of ego. In bhakti yoga, we get rid of the ego through expansion, through seeing our beloved in everything, and thereby knowing our oneness with everything. So that sense of I includes many and not just the one, right? And through Raja Yoga, just controlling the mind, stopping thought, looking between the thoughts at the divine behind. Those thoughts are the source of ego. Thoughts are caused by me and mine. You see, the natural mind is pure, still, unchanging. We interrupt it by putting two fingers in that pond, the fingers of me and mine. And that is what causes thought. That's what causes a disturbed mind. And so that mind stays disturbed. And so Raja Yoga, ways of setting down that mind. And then, of course, Jnana Yoga, who am I? What am I? And just learning what you really are diminishes ego, because ego is a covering of what you are, right? So it's the same problem being solved in all the paths, that you are not separate from your beloved.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
We're going to take one more question, and then we're going to close for the day. There's lots of good food here for people who are here in person.
I do have one question, if it's okay after that.
Yes.
Pranam Swamiji, this is Shekhar. Thank you for doing all these things for us.
Yes.
Big question that Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying two things to Arjuna, that one is get rid of desire, and second is practice. And this practice has to be done by me. How can I see it and leave everything to divine? How it can automatically come that practice, sit for a fixed time and sit in a place, and all these things has to be done by me. So how I cannot do that and go through the spiritual life?
You can. It's through discernment, you know. As far as you think that you're the doer, be the doer. It is important for us to be where we are. We can't practice above our heads, right? So if we see ourselves as the doer, then we surrender that doership to divine things. We do divine things. We sit in our practice. We serve people next to us. We love our neighbor. Any egoism that remains in us, Thakur says, subject that to God through relationship, through devotion, and it will take care of itself. The other practices will do the same thing. But if you want it to go faster, go inside and observe your inner world. You will find, like the way that you do that, go inside and think, okay, where is the body in here? When you close your eyes, you go in to be quiet. What is the body from that space? Find out, figure it out, watch. How does it communicate with me? How does it send signals? How does it converse, right? And then look at mind. How does mind enter this space, right? And I'm the observer. And what you come to find out is that all notions of doership, all desire, always arise from either body or mind, right? But the self, the observer, never introduces a desire, never introduces a doership. The self is always moved by the winds of grace, moved by like the sails of a ship, right? So it could look like doership, right? The sails could certainly say, look at me, I'm moving the boat. But is it really the sails that are moving the boat? No, it's the wind of God's grace. And so by going inside and finding out what it means when we say I'm not the body, what it means when I say I'm not the mind, by going inside and discerning the boundaries of body and mind and understanding our relationship in the moment with those things, we become aware of a self that is not geolocated in a body, that is not hungry, that is never thirsty, that never has a mood, it is never bored. It's always fully engaged in the observation of the Leela, of the divine play. And when we come to find ourselves and identify ourselves with that, then we're not caught in the mind. And the mind is what contains time, space, and causation. The mind, time, space, causation is not inherent in the reality. It's inherent in the tool that we're using to observe reality. And so time, space, causation is where egoism lies, where doership lies, and all of the dual throng that we're trying to surrender exists in mind and flourishes as long as we identify with mind, with thoughts, right? As long as we have to understand that the world that we live in is a mind. It's not a world of reality. It's a set of thoughts. All the things you're seeing right now, you're not seeing those things. You're seeing a thought about those things, right? Every visual, every sensual piece of information coming in, you don't have the original. You can't verify the original. You don't know the source, and you can't verify the source. And so you're living in a projected world. Come to know that and understand that even the doing in this world is the doing in a dream. You can carry as many bricks in your dream as you want last night, and not a single brick has moved. There's nothing there. And the nature of this world is the same. Do as much as you like to do in this world. When you die, or when you realize, you'll come to know not a brick was moved, right? This world is illusory. It's a projection of the story of love from billions of perspectives. And so it's through observation, through very careful inner discernment, that the idea of doership becomes silly in time. But in the meantime, don't worry about it. In the meantime, be happy that Mother has given you some sense of actualization, and use that. Use that to create beauty, to give back to her. Enjoy that relationship. Mother has you here for a reason. You're deluded for a reason. You're stuck here for a reason. That reason is Mother's love. She likes to play. And in actuality, she is the one playing. You have just pasted a name tag over that. But you are the Divine Mother playing, lost in her own world, enjoying her own self. And so don't worry. Enjoy her with her. Right? But always be sure to act out of your twofold knowledge that you are love and you are wisdom. Right? And so to try any action that you do perform, make sure it's in harmony with what you are. And go forward. Mother will free you when the time comes to free you. Be content to know that it's as good as done. And you can borrow on it. You can sit in the presence and assume that presence and enjoy it. Even if you don't see it, you can know it's there because you're here. Right? The dreamer indicates the dream. Right? Or the dream indicates the dreamer.
Thank you, Swami.
I have one more question, if it's okay.
I think we need to take a break.
Hey, Jillian.
I do have a question also.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
Hello.
I can't do any more questions because I also have a Sunday morning meeting in person that is forming outside my door here that I have to go to.
We need to let you go, Swami. I want to thank you so much for being with us here today. We really appreciate it.
Jama.
And thank you, everybody on Zoom, for participating. And we will now cut off our Zoom. Thank you, Swami.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Go forward.
For everyone who's here, as usual, there is food in the other room. So again,